friends, and welcome to Mortisect's Top 10. Well, today's really not a Top 10. We decided to go in a different format. We wanted to do more of kind of like a talk podcast. So we are going to discuss Thanksgiving-themed horror films, and each of us picked one, and today's guests are Ben Scrivens from Fright and screenwriter Adam Lucas. So, guys, thank you for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
So the way the format's going to go is that we each picked our favorite Thanksgiving-themed horror film, and we're going to just talk about it and just see what type of conversation comes up, right? The movie that I chose was The Last Thanksgiving. Now, this is a film that was made in 2020. What I like about it, and maybe that's not saying too much for the actual film, is that it comes in at a clean 72 minutes. And if you like action, which I do, I love B-horror films, I love slasher films, it gets right into the action. And I think if you're somebody who's not as crazy for storyline, but you like, you know, Tom Savini-esque special effects, this film is for you. And guys, this is your first time watching The Last Thanksgiving, if you even watched it. I don't know.
I certainly watched it. First time.
And I'll just give a little synopsis and then just kind of throw what kind of came out there for you for the film. So with The Last Thanksgiving, it is about, happens on Thanksgiving. You have Lisa Marie, she's the main protagonist, and she has to work on Thanksgiving.
You can't seriously expect me to go to work on Thanksgiving. Oh, yes, I can.
Now, I don't know if anybody here has ever had to work on Thanksgiving, but it stinks. You do sometimes get time and a half, but it really does. And her parents force her to go. She doesn't want to go in. And she probably shouldn't have listened to her parents because she goes into the diner and nobody's there. And then all of a sudden we have cannibalistic pilgrims or people that were related to the pilgrims come in and just create havoc. Now, that's pretty much the film. So I don't think I have to add too much more after that. But it's fun because, again, with the shorter type of film, you get right into the action. Now, I'll start. Ben, I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you get to see the movie?
I didn't, unfortunately. That was the one I'm coming in completely sight unseen. So it's more me listening to you going, ooh, do I need to watch this? Or...
Well, if you like those old school, like the beginning is something that I really like about the film because it had that 80s feel to me. It reminded me when I was a kid and I would watch one of these films on cable, you know, late at night, and they would have it on repeat, probably because they had the copyright to it. And the music is actually really good. But my problem is that they use the same music all throughout the film. It was like, all right, you couldn't go on like GarageBand or like, 'cause this film was made a couple of years ago. You couldn't just come up with something else. It was the same music for every scene. And I'll tell you, I mean, like, Ben, I know you're a fan of Halloween, and John Carpenter, you know, I mean, he composed the music. And, I mean, he did obviously use some of the same tunes, but, you know, for each feel of the film, you need, like, a different type of sound. So that's where it fell short. But, Adam, was there a certain scene that you liked of this film?
This film was insane. I don't even know where to start. Okay. The deviled eggs are terrible. I want to know in what small town there is a theater that is only programming The Last Suit and the Death of Stalin. That was what the theater was playing that she walked. Like, if there's a GoFundMe for that theater, I'm in, let me know. I will support you. Amazing. As you said, it comes in at a clean 70 minutes. It's a blast. Everybody is committed to their parts. Some of the actors are turned up to 11 throughout. Everything is the highest set of stakes. Anything that they do, some are pitched perpetually at a 3. They're carving people up and there are no stakes. But the tonal mishmash of it made it really fun. As you said, it felt like an old school B-horror film. You could tell that everybody was committed. It was certainly a passionate project. And as you said, the opening sequence was really interesting because it did feel like a Stephen King made-for-TV late 80s, early 90s movie, the way it was shot, the score, and I think that really got me in the right headspace for what I was about to go through for 17 minutes. So I had a blast with it.
And it's fun because they did have an 80s scream queen actress in it, Linnea Quigley, so it was good to see her. I mean, it was a small part, and it doesn't end well for her, but it was nice to have that connection. For sure. And I do agree with you. It had that made-for-TV film-like quality. And it kind of reminded me, because anytime I'm watching one of these horror films, I start thinking of other horror films that are similar. And it's funny that the Pilgrim family, they reminded me of the Firefly family from like House of a Thousand Corpses. They had a little bit of that going on. They have, like the good-looking woman who looks normal and she's completely off her gourd. And then you have the brother, and then you have like this weird creature that's part of their family that only wears a mask, and he's too ugly to be seen, and he's like killing everyone.
So I thought Texas Chainsaw 2. I thought that's exactly this movie loves that film.
Exactly, and that's right, because I mean, definitely Rob Zombie copied from
That's a good
Texas Chainsaw. So there is that the formulaic part, but. Sometimes people say with formula, I don't like that. I want to see something new. But there's something comforting about seeing a slasher film and kind of knowing what's going to happen. We know, all right, this person, they're gone. They're not going to last. And there's also the sadistic part is that when you see a certain character, you know that's going to happen. You're going to enjoy seeing what happens. Don't want to say which character gets it, but we were talking, me and Adam, and there's one scene where there's gentleman, and he gets his, well, I already cut down half the cast with that, but his head splits in two. The guy takes a meat cleaver and is able to cut him in half. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know how sharp that thing is. It must be like Hattori Hanzo sharp to do that. But I just loved it, and it was like, that reminds me of every film that I loved as a kid.
A lot of practice. The guy who did it has been doing this for years and years and years, so he knows exactly where to hit and how to cut that turkey. He knew how to go in there.
It's like, like Lou Ferrigno taking it and just like slamming it into the guy's head. It was like incredible Hulk strength.
I feel like nothing about the movie told me that it had a special effects moment quite like that in it. The special effects are not bad, and they're very playful, but that came out of nowhere for me in a really pleasantly shocking way.
Yeah, because that person, they did get a couple of licks on the Pilgrim. They really did mess one of them up, and then you're thinking, oh God, this guy might be a hero of the movie, and then just like that, he's out for the count. But again, this one is on Tubi. It's on a lot of the streaming services. If you're looking to get into the holiday spirit, and you do have to work on Thanksgiving, I think it's actually not a bad film. And again, the investment in time, because sometimes when I see a movie, if I saw this movie and it said an hour and 40 minutes, I'm going to say there's going to be a lot of bad dialogue. I'm not going to be able to sit through this. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. When I saw 70, I'm like, okay, there's going to be a lot of action. It was mentioned in a couple of write-ups, Fangoria, other magazines. So it is worth, guys, it's worth giving it a shot. You can see it on Tubi and
I think that's where
Amazon.
I watched it.
Yeah, that's what I watch. It's free streaming. But again, it's a fun slasher film. The relationships, they're not really developed, but you don't want them to be, honestly. You just want to see people fighting the adversity of these cannibalistic pilgrims and just seeing where it goes. So.
Yeah, it gets right to the crazy, I'll say, which is a plus. That's a pro. Yeah.
Right to the crazy. I love that.
That's a feature, not a bug.
So let's go into now. Ben, I'd like to save yours for last because yours really embodies Thanksgiving. Let's go to Ready or Not, because that's an interesting pick for Thanksgiving, because it's not really at Thanksgiving, but there is a story to why you chose it, right?
Absolutely. And what's the basic premise? Bride goes to her soon-to-be husband's family's house to be married, finds out their traditions are a little bit strange.
We place a blank card into the box, and Mr. LeBay will tell us which game to play.
Put her in peril. She's forced to play hide and seek to the death.
It says hide and seek. Are we really going to play that?
And watching it for the first time, I remember seeing it in the theater, totally fell in love with it. And the movie doesn't pretend to be a holiday movie, but it hits all of the beats for me. You're meeting the in-laws for the first time. You're going to the childhood home. You're sneaking cigarettes up in the bedroom. The family has history and bizarre rituals that you were very much on the outside of. Somebody inevitably gets drunk and wants to litigate all of their personal regrets out loud. I mean, this is completely Thanksgiving. After dinner, the board games come out, and soon enough, everybody's trying to kill each other because the family's politics become apparent. Like, the only way this film could have been more Thanksgiving coded is if during hide and seek, somebody like demanded that the parade be on, even though no one is watching it. No one's watching it. Just put on football coverage. But again, it doesn't pretend to be a holiday film, but it even feels like it's set. I don't know if it is, but it feels like it's set during Thanksgiving. It just, hits all of the right beats, the movie isn't over until everybody is physically ready to explode, just like Thanksgiving. And it's another tight 90. It's a perfect confection. Nobody over Thanksgiving in a holiday devoted to feeling bloated wants to see something bloated. Like, it gets in and out before the turkey takes effect and you're asleep on the couch. I mean, top to bottom, this is an annual Thanksgiving watch for me. Yeah.
Now, Ben, you've said that you've seen this film as well. What was your favorite scene, or what was your take on the film?
Oh, I loved it. I just loved how it escalated throughout the film. And I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but I remember being really excited to see it. And I love Samara Weaving. And I was like, okay, nothing about this movie sounds like it's going to be bad. And I was totally like, pleasantly, surprised that it was just as good as it was. I thought it was going to be, in fact, better. I just liked how crazy the family got, because again, it starts you off with that sort of, okay, you kind of know what you're getting into, especially you hadn't seen the preview. You're like, okay, she's seeing the family, there's probably something there. And then it's like, wait a minute, what? We have to do this like hide and seek game, and we have to this gets getting crazy. And then all the other interpersonal politics of the family. Like, it is, honestly, I never thought of it as a Thanksgiving movie, but I'm totally sold on watching it every year on Thanksgiving now, or around this time, and adding it to the list, because it totally makes sense.
Good.
So you started a new tradition for Ben, Adam. That's great.
I'm happy too.
And maybe myself too, because when you look at it, like, I don't know, like, I believe you're both married, going to your in-laws, and that first time where you're trying to impress them, but you're also trying to be yourself. You don't want to be a phony. And I think Samara Weaving was trying that. Like, she wanted to be on her best behavior. She wants to be accepted. Her background, she was in foster care, so having this family means so much more to her. And unfortunately, she ends up with the in-laws literally from hell. And but trying to impress, yes. And you know what, Adam, when you mentioned about bloated, that I didn't ever put that context. I didn't put that together. Again, there's going to be spoilers in this, so but we're not going to be overt with the spoilers. But yes, when that bloated sense, and also that all they care about is the financial wealth. There's that bloated fat cat approach too.
Consumerist, Black Friday angle. Yeah, it's just, again, for a movie that doesn't, I don't know if it's aware or not, but a movie that doesn't play that hand, it just all feels like it's kind of there, if that's the way you want to read it.
It was enjoyable. Again, I haven't seen it in a while, and then I was able to watch it again. And, it's funny, with horror films, I don't know about both of you, but I rarely watch them multiple times. I'll watch it once, maybe twice if I'm flipping through the channel, but it takes special ones for me anyway to watch it, let's say, every year. And I could see that one being it, because there's also the black comedy aspect. It's not just a horror, but it has all the genres interwoven, so there is, like, with the daughter of the family, and I forget their name, but when she's making her deadly mistakes.
Mr. Ladomas, I just saw her run.
Why does this always happen to me? Come on!
Okay,
it's like, oh man, I did this again. So that was great too. And guys, if you want to watch that, it's actually on FX, just streaming right now. So if anybody's out there wants to watch it, you can definitely watch it right now. And it's definitely worth it. Ben, was there anything else about the film that that you remember that really spoke to you, or does it remind you of any other horror film? Because I know you're a big horror fan. So is there another horror film that kind of resembles that to you?
Yeah, and it's funny, there was another movie that I used to kind of almost get confused with Ready or Not, and I was trying to think of it. But one movie that came to mind that's also a holiday movie, not a Thanksgiving movie, was Violent Night. That came out a couple years ago, with oh my gosh, I'm blanking, the guy who plays the chief on Stranger Things.
David Harbour?
Thank you, David Harbour, playing Santa Claus. And again, not a Thanksgiving movie, but it reminds me of the family dynamic that you have to deal with when you've got, especially when, like in Ready or Not, it's a rich family, right? So you're dealing with like a wealthy family that obviously there's people there that are probably after the money, and that type of thing. Like Violent Night was the same thing, where I'm like, oh, these would make a great pairing to watch together. So I feel like there was another movie that I couldn't place. I was trying to think of it before we got on here. I was like, what is that other movie that this reminds me of so much? I don't know if you guys know, but I don't know, there's some similar vein. I'll have to think of it later. But
No, Violent Night's a good thought, though. I hadn't thought about that, and I liked it when I saw it, but I haven't seen it since. I'll need to give it another watch, especially in close relation to this. Yeah, that's a good thought.
I'm trying to think, and Ben, I know what you're talking about, because there is a film, was it like The Game or something like that, where they're hunting people down, or like you get that sense of like the hunter and the hunted.
That's
Is it
The
The Game? Is that what it's called?
Your Next comes to mind as well, but I don't think that was the one I was thinking of. But yeah, there is sort of that hunted thing going on.
Are you talking about the one that was they delayed the release? It is.
Oh, there's a politically themed one.
For sure.
I think it's called that. And the
Hunt.
The Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've heard it. I haven't seen that one yet, but I do know about that movie. That seems like it could be similar.
It is. Similar tone as well. That's a movie that actually, I feel like that movie got panned, and I'm going to go out there and say, I actually think The Hunt is really smart in a way that is not too self-serious and is really funny. And I feel like everybody put that film down, and I really like it. So I'll go to bat for The Hunt.
Yeah, hey, and if you know of any films that do align with Ready or Not, please put it in comments down below. We love to hear from you, and certainly love to learn about new films that we can watch. So from Ready or Not, we go to our last film, but this is the film I think we're going to definitely spend more time on. Oh, yeah. It's perfectly it encapsulates that Thanksgiving feel, and that's, Ben, is your choice. So if you wouldn't mind introducing, giving a little short synopsis.
Sure. So my pick is Thanksgiving by Eli Roth. That came out last year. It was based on the trailer he made for the Grindhouse film that Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino released back in 2007. So if you remember, Quentin Tarantino had Death Proof, and Robert Rodriguez had Planet Terror, but in between they showed fake trailers for movies that didn't exist, and Eli Roth made one called Thanksgiving, and it was alluded to a slasher film taking place on Thanksgiving. Well, however many, 18 or 16 years go by, he finally makes the movie for Thanksgiving, and it of course takes place on Thanksgiving, and it deals with a store that's opening for Black Friday on Thanksgiving, and people are kind of arguing about whether or not that should be the case. People should be home for Thanksgiving, but there are people waiting to get in, and the kids of the guy who owns the store go into the store to get some things, and they can kind of get ahead of the line because they're, the kids of the guy who runs it. So there's already people that are mad at them. And then the people just start getting crazy, and they break through the doors, and they want to get their toasters, and they want to get their stuff, and just mayhem ensues. And at least one person does die. There are other people that get stampeded upon. I think there's more than one death in that scene, if I recall correctly, but there's definitely some amazing gore going on. But one person in particular dies, and then you fast forward to a year later, where the town's sort of recovering from all this. It's the year anniversary of what happened, and the kids are kind of dealing with it, and all of a sudden, basically murders start happening, and it's someone dressed up as John Carver. And again, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a whodunit aspect to it. So it's almost like, it's what I love about this movie is I wanted it to be everything that it actually was. And what I mean by that is I just wanted to sit down and watch a slasher film. I didn't want it to have some weird, crazy premise, or having it to say anything more than, let's just go have some fun and kill people. Like, I'm all about a lot of the modern movies that are coming out that have these twists or sort of other sort of things in their story that might pertain to, life nowadays, whatever. That's all fine and well. But this movie, I literally wanted it to be like, this could have been released back in, 84, or even the late 90s for that matter, for the second wave of the slasher craze. And this delivered so much. I mean, especially even at the very end, at the last moment where all of a sudden they start playing the Misfits, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, even the end credits, I was just sitting there for. So, and what I love about it is not only does it just not take itself seriously, but yet it's just done so incredibly well. The whodunit aspect is cool. I mean, again, it's been done before with Scream and all these other movies, especially back in the late 90s, but it was still fun. And the gore was amazing. So it's like, when you can nail all of those elements, like, I am totally in on all of that. And I remember leaving the theater going, I cannot wait to A, watch this again, and B, watch it every year for Thanksgiving. This is absolutely a new tradition.
And it's funny you mentioned the Misfits. It was where Eagles Dare. That's the song, and I did too. I was like, oh man, this is really good because I'm a big Misfits fan. When you mentioned the original trailer, I remember that because I remember seeing Grindhouse in the movie theaters, and I love those little like the snippets of the trailers, the fake trailers, and I remember saying, oh, Thanksgiving, they have to make a full-length feature of this. They had Michael Biehn in it, and I remember the one scene where you see the turkey's head get slashed, the person who's in the mascot, and you see Michael Biehn, he's like playing a detective, and he like dips his fingers in the blood, and he tastes it, and he goes, it's blood. Son of a bitch.
It's blood. Son of a bitch.
You know, so it was great, and they actually recreated a couple of the scenes that were shown in the trailer in the movie, one being the infamous trampoline scene, which, you know, if you've seen the Grindhouse film and this film, you know what I'm talking about. But I was glad that they did pay homage to it, especially in a couple of the instances throughout the film.
God, you're going to send me back to watch it. I remember that that's where it came from. That's where the idea started, but I haven't seen Grindhouse in long enough that I don't remember what the little snippet looked like. Now I need to go back and rewatch it.
And I'm so glad that they made this film. I agree with you, Ben, with the gore aspect. It also reminded me, I don't know, Ben, do you know the film Happy Birthday to Me?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With Melissa Sue Anderson. It is 1981.
Very close reference to that. Yeah.
Okay. Because there are scenes when they're showing, you know, they're don't want to give too much away, but the ending scene of Happy Birthday to Me and the way the slasher film, the way it was structured, it reminded me very much of that, and that's one of my favorite slasher films too. So.
Oh, good. I have homework.
You should, yeah, Adam. You gotta check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny. I remember just going in very quickly on your point. A cynical, terrible part of me, you know, when that film came out, thinking, do we really need something this obvious? And then I went to see that film, and I came out of the theater going, oh yeah, we absolutely needed something that obvious. That was brilliant. And as you said, it knows exactly what movie it is. It knows that you know what slasher this is. It feels to me like that 90s era. It's like, you know who you're looking at as the prime suspect, you know who you're watching, and it just pokes all of those buttons so pleasantly the whole way through and gives you this payoff that is, you know, inevitable in hindsight, but feels like this great early 90s slasher. Yeah, whodunit? Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to Eli about it because we worked on a board game for Thanksgiving with him, and he was very integral. In fact, he was the one that came up to approach us with the idea, and us and our partners. So he was saying that, you know, pretty much the movie was exactly how he wanted it. The one thing he had to kind of give up on was actually showing nudity. He said that when it was tested, kids today don't want to see nudity in films. And he said that he had to take that out. And I thought that was very interesting because we grew up in a time where as a young red-blooded boy watching these slasher movies as a kid, I mean, that was part of the appeal in addition to gore and all the other stuff, right? I mean, it just was. So it was interesting that, and again, the film is still incredibly effective without that. I just thought that was an interesting kind of anecdote, but especially because the actual trailer from Grindhouse shows nudity in like the 2 minutes of the trailer, like it shows a few scenes. But basically it was nice to know that at least other stuff and that was left in or put into the film was what he wanted, and he didn't have to cut too much of what, you know, he wanted to the final cut to be.
When we had our interview together, which they can watch it on the channel, you mentioned about like Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, and I revisited it because when you said it, I was like, God, I don't really remember those films. And you see, I mean, the nudity and the sexuality of the films. And I was funny because as a kid, you kind of just took it for granted, I guess. Like you expected to see, you know, body parts and not just them severed from somebody's body, but you're actually going to see them in motion. And I always wondered about that. And it's kind of ironic because with I guess youth today, it's almost like become a little bit more puritanical in a way.
It does seem like we're going through that trend. I don't know what that speaks to, but I've heard people sort of say similar. Yeah, it is interesting.
Was there anything else that Eli Roth mentioned to you about Thanksgiving that you'd like to share?
I mean, he's just been super great to work with. I know the one thing I appreciate about him in general is the fact that uh he's so involved with the promotion of that film. Like, it's interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can obviously point to other filmmakers, directors, and things that do get involved with promoting their pictures and all that, of course. But he's so like really like intimately involved with all the aspects of it. Like, it wasn't like, hey guys, can we create a board game? It was like, I want to be involved in the sense that I want to be a part of it. Like, we played the game with him virtually several occasions just to make sure it all worked out well. And he added his ideas and thoughts. The other thing is he let us and everybody else in the team do what we wanted. It wasn't like he was micromanaging, but he wanted to be a part of it in every step. He wasn't just like, oh, make a game and then he's off doing his thing. And I thought that's really refreshing from someone like him, who clearly has been in this business for a while, has a lot of films under his belt, probably has other things going on in his life, but he's so connected to especially this film, and it makes people like us and our jobs even easier because we can kind of riff off that, especially because I love the film so much and I want to do more with it. So I just like his involvement after the fact. Like, obviously he made the film, he wrote, directed it, all that, but his involvement after the fact, I don't know, it kind of just speaks volumes to me. And it's like, oh, it's really cool. Like, even if we didn't have anything to do with the game or the shirts or whatever, knowing that he's so intimately involved with these things after the fact is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one cynical screenwriter's opinion, but it's really, I mean, it's a difficult industry and you get beaten down in a lot of ways, and it's easy to become cynical. It's easy to lose that passion. It is refreshing to see someone like that who really just clings to it. And you can tell in everything that he does, every interview you see, every program that he hosts or is a part of, he just really loves the medium and the genre, and that's great. Yeah.
Most important question: did Eli Roth win at his own game?
No, actually, he didn't, which is kind of funny. He didn't. And the other thing is, like, it also bodes well for a sequel, right? Because he's working on the sequel, and to my knowledge, it's still slated to come out next year. And it's like, if he's this animated about it and involved, like, this can only, bleed into that sequel and not just be like, oh, I'm contractually obligated, or, oh, it did so much, so I guess I got to do another one or whatever. It's like, he's going to put a lot of effort and energy into this. So I'm just as excited to see the sequel as I am the first one. I want 10 of these movies. I want this to be another Jason or Freddy, like, this is great.
That would be awesome. And it would be awesome if he had a scene where they're playing the actual game, or have the game in the background somewhere, like an Easter egg. That would be so awesome.
That's very cool.
Any parting thoughts in regard to any of the films? Was there anything that we didn't bring up from The Last Thanksgiving, Ready or Not, or Thanksgiving that you like to bring up now that we can chew on a little bit?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to catch a new film and to revisit an old film. But
that's not good enough. I want something now. Put everyone on the spot.
I have one honorable mention. It was actually the other one that I was thinking about choosing. I just felt like Thanksgiving, if nobody else had chosen it, I wanted to talk about. But an honorable mention to put on the list, and I know we could go through a lot more, but Blood Rage has to be on everybody's Thanksgiving watch list. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. That movie is bonkers. It's amazing. It's 77 minutes, so just like The Last Thanksgiving, you're in and out. And oh, what a great movie.
Guys, check it out, Blood Rage. There are quite a few Thanksgiving-themed horror films. I think there's also one, I haven't seen it, but I heard a lot about it. It's like a found footage horror film where the family's celebrating Thanksgiving. I think it was like 1998, and then there's an alien invasion. I'm forgetting the name of it.
It's the Last Abduction. It's the remake of the McPherson tapes.
Yes.
It's the
So there's a lot of stuff out there, guys. You can definitely Google it. I had a professor that would always say, Google it. So just Google it. You can find a lot. And if you have any suggestions, we love fan interaction. So please put it in the comments down below. I'd like to thank Ben Scrivens from Fright-rags.com, screenwriter Adam Lucas, and guys, thank you for coming down to Rabbit Hole with us. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and don't forget, stay home, because it's better than going out and possibly ending up like last Thanksgiving. No, just kidding. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks a lot, and thanks for coming down to Rabbit Hole with us, friends.